Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for Saratoga Springs for Thursday, March 11th, 2021. I'll have a brief statement to read to start. I, Troy Cunningham, Planning Commission Chair, hereby determine that conducting the Planning Commission meeting at an acre location presents substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the acre location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, and the County Health Department have all recognized that global pandemic exists related to the new strain of coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19. Due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who will be present at the location. This written declaration expires 30 days from the date signed. Signed, Troy Cunningham, Saratoga Springs Planning Commission Chair, dated February 18, 2021. Okay. First, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead that because I didn't ask anyone else to. Can we put up the flag, please? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so we'll go here with a roll call, and I believe, let me just go through here. All the planning commissioners are available. Have anyone that's not here. We have a number of people here from the city as well. The first item that we have is a rezone hearing for the Canyon Hollow Summer Village rezone from agriculture to MF10 located at 1498 North Summer Village Road. Jason Scarper was the applicant, and I believe David Stroud will be presenting this item for us. So David, as you're ready, go ahead and.
Yes, okay, yeah, that's correct. Jason should be attending here as well. He was given an invite. The one item tonight, commissioners, and those from the public looking at the watching the YouTube feed, is a rezone on property at 1498 Summer Village Road. You can see it here identified on the plan. Now what we're looking at here on this map, this is the general plan. Now what the general plan is, it's a guide for future development, what zones should be or what type of zone would come in under the general plan. So you can see the property identified in blue, it's about 1.5 acres. It is identified on the general plan as medium density residential. Within the city code, there are 3 zones that implement the medium density residential, and that is the R28, R36, and MF10 zones. The applicant is requesting the MF10, similar to what you see to the north of those properties there in the lighter color. In fact, well, I'll go to the zone here. And here's the current zone map. So the current zone right now is the green, is agriculture. Basically what agriculture was when the city was formed, a lot of the properties around that didn't have any outright development from the beginning were just given an agricultural designation, basically as a holding zone. And so this property has an existing house, was built, I believe, in the early 70s. The applicant has purchased the property and would like to rezone to the MF10 zone, which is in conformance with the general plan. And so if you look at the zones that are surrounding the property, to the north, we have MF10, and then to the west, we have MF14 with a PUD overlay zone. Basically 10 units to an acre, 14 units to an acre. I didn't do a calculation on the MF14, but typically with the PUD, that allowed them to go to probably a higher density than 14. But anyway, the surrounding properties are multifamily attached units. Some to the west are 10-unit buildings, some are 9. To the north, you've got 4-unit buildings, some 2-unit buildings, basically kind of a good mix of what's there. And the applicant would like to go to the MF10 to do a development similar to what's around to the north and to the west. Now with this request, we're not looking at anything detailed on the site plan. A concept plan does come in at this time to give an idea of what they want to do, but any red lines, any comments on a concept plan are non-binding. There are no development rights granted other than what the zone allows. There are no rights guaranteed just by what's shown on the concept plan, put it that way. It just gives an idea of what the applicant would like to do. We had talked to a few people in the neighborhood that have called. I did have one applicant, one neighbor earlier today who lived on near July Lane and June Lane, just to the west. I guess there's been some stormwater issues there in the past, and he had concerns with this property. Obviously, anything that's going to develop on that property, the stormwater issues are equal. And so that is something that is addressed at the plat and the site plan stage. Tonight, and I'm glad we're aware of it. I'm glad he brought that to our attention. But tonight, what the Planning Commission is to do is to look at the property and make a recommendation based on if you think that that is an appropriate zone and that it is in compliance with the general plan. So what the applicant is then proposing would be 13 units, somewhat in the configuration you see here. Obviously, this small of a piece of property, you cannot do a whole lot. There's access to the south. We've got to connect up on the northeast. Not a whole lot of ways you can actually configure the property here. And so the applicant is proposing the 13 units, which puts it at 8.23 units per acre. The zone would allow a 10 maximum. Initially, the applicant had 15, but when we did a concept plan review, some of these setbacks were not correct. And so he had to put on the correct side setbacks on the corner units, which actually then caused the loss of 2 of the original units that he was proposing. So they would be 2-story units in 2 and 3 unit structures. Now the general plan issues with the whole Prop 6, 2 and 3 unit structures, if they're 2-story or greater, are not governed under that section of the general plan. There are no limitations to the amount of that type of unit in the city. And so there will be a connection to Alameda Way and partial improvement of Summer Village Road. And these then are the elevations, again, 2-story, 2-car garage from 1742 to 1896 on the square footage. There is accompanying guest parking as per the code. Will require minimum 15% landscaping or open space. And again, this type of unit is very compatible with what's in the existing area. Staff recommends approval with the findings and conditions as you see here and in your staff report. Then of course you have the option to continue if you just see that something's not right, or recommend denial to the applicant. Any questions I can answer right now?
Okay, thank you, David. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation?
No, I think David covered it. We were just providing, we're trying to provide somewhat suburban neighborhood feel. As David said, no units over 3 per building. And we hope this will be a nice development.
Okay, thanks. Did you have something else?
No, thank you.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so we're going to go ahead and open this up for public comment. And I believe we have a video from a resident. Is that correct?
That applicant is present, or that public comment is present. If you would like to just speak, or I can share his video.
Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and allow him to speak if he's available.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lisa Crandall. Nate Crandall is the one that had submitted for a request to speak, but he's unavailable. I'm his wife. We just wanted to go over, we had 4 points that we'd like to cover, concerns that we have about this development. We're longtime homeowners, original homeowners of the Summer Village community. We've lived here about 15 years. These are the 4 points that we want to go over. Number 1, open space. In this part of the city, there are too many homes in too little space. It is causing traffic issues, parking issues, and generally poor quality of living because of lack of green and open space. This quadrant of the city is not represented with city parks. There are no places for kids to go. More housing projects are approved, which brings dense growth and tight living conditions. In addition to the density level of each development, the overall area needs to be considered for the space between the developments. We hope consideration is given for the amount of and closeness of the development. The community would be better served with a mix of single-family homes. We hope that the quality of living will take precedence over profits. And point number 2 was drainage and elevation. We are concerned about the grading and drainage of the property. In the last 3 developments surrounding our community, the Gables, River Heights, and Jordan View, each developer significantly raised the elevation. In 2 of these developments, we were left with severe and expensive consequences. In each case, the flow of the land was altered and changed the direction of the drainage toward our community. We are requesting that the natural flow of the land towards the Jordan River be maintained and the new development not be allowed to raise the elevation above the existing homes. Existing elevation without the addition of fill dirt will help the existing homes to better maintain their value. Basements need to be dug to a proper depth. Historically, builders have made their profits at the existing residents' expense in terms of damage and lost property value. We are asking for oversight and protection. Point 3 is parking. Right now, there is parking that is being used by as many as a dozen cars at a time on the Summer Village Road. There is simply not room for everyone to park with the townhomes in Summer Village being single car driveways and garages. There will be a parking crisis if this development is overbuilt and the developer crams as many units as they can onto the lot. There needs to be fewer units and more room for parking. We currently have single-family homes in River Heights, and the diversity of housing creates a more appealing and stable living environment. We feel that 4 to 5 single-family homes on this lot would better serve the community. And then our 4th point is rentals. We need more home ownership in this area. Home ownership is better for the occupants and the community. Home ownership creates stability. Right now, with the high number of rentals we have, becomes a highly transient community. We feel that the new community should be owner occupied. Those are our 4 points. And then again, we have that video. If you'd like to show that at another time or during this meeting, that is fine. Let me know if there's any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other public comment, any emails or anything that we need to read or bring into the record before we continue? David, did you have any other emails that you received?
Not emails. Didn't have any emails, but just phone calls, people asking because I got the notice, hey, what's going on here? Mr. Crandall there, I did speak with him for about 15 minutes this morning on this.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment at this time and then turn over to staff to address some of the issues that Mrs. Crandall brought up.
Yeah, and I wrote.
My apologies. Would that video be part of the public comment?
I don't know that we need to allow the video for public comment where the person came in and made comment.
Okay.
I need to see it.
Yeah. What Mrs. Crandall did point out was what was actually pointed out in the video. There's some pictures in the video, but she hit the points that Mr. Crandall points out in the video. Okay, so point number 1, the open space. Anytime a residential project comes in, they're required to have open space. A single family development is required to have at least 10%. A development such as this would be required to have 15%. Unless the city has this pegged for a city park and the city goes and buys the property, it would not become a city park. So every residential development does contribute to their own neighborhood park facilities, and the same would be true in the case of this project here. The drainage, he's pointing that out to us, which is great information to know. I was not aware of any of that. Gordon Miner, the city engineer, can take any comment on that. But like I mentioned earlier, at the time, when the time comes to look at the preliminary plat and the site plan, we will then look at the drainage issue there and see what is going on with that. At a rezone stage, we're strictly looking at, is this an appropriate zone for the property? I missed point number 3. Did anybody write that one down? I missed that one.
It was parking.
Parking.
Okay, parking. Yeah, there is parking. You see on the concept plan here, they are 2-car garages. They do have, a couple of them have some deeper driveways as well. So in theory, you could park 4 cars per unit there. There is guest parking, which is required. Again, typically with townhome type developments, especially if there's no basement, I mean, honestly, you do get a lot of units that people end up using their garage for storage, which then eliminates some parking. We can't do anything about that. That's, if they choose to use their garage for that, great, that's up to them. But it seems to be in my experience that does cause a lot of the parking problems. But what the applicant is proposing right now with this does meet the code as far as parking is concerned. And again, the street configuration, all the configurations you see on the concept plan, again, none of this is binding. It's a concept and just that. When the formal plan comes through, then we will look at it with the fine tooth comb. The fourth one was rentals. The city cannot require that these not be rentals. Every homeowner has a right to purchase a property and either live in it or use it as a rental. Cities cannot not require a homeowner to not rent their property. If they do, they still have to comply with how we define a single family, which would be up to 4 people that are not related.
Okay. Thank you, David. I'll go ahead and turn this over then to the Planning Commission for comment. And I'll start with Ken if he's ready to go.
Yes. On that, on the page 8, well, is it page 8? No, how about page 10? Has the overview, the drawing of the neighborhood, and shows the road going through it. I was wondering what happens to the lots, or to the, let me just read it here. To the land in the upper right corner of the lot. Not so much on the applicant's property itself, but just adjacent to it in the upper right-hand corner as the road goes through.
Right where the road connects to Alameda?
Yeah, what on either
Yeah.
side of the road, there's like triangular sections of property. What happens to that?
Yeah, right now on that adjacent plat, there's actually an easement for a public road. So when that development came through, it was already anticipated there's going to be a road connection right here. Right now, the applicant has that drawn up as a private road. Potentially that could go public as well. We have to look at that. We have to look at, because the rest of the road to the south is public. We have to look at issues of if that is now private, and we're running snowplows up there in the wintertime, for instance, where our snowplows now turn around because we don't snowplow private roads. And so we'll have to look at that. There is an easement already granted on that property for access for a public road, and potentially we'd have to have the HOA approve access for a private. But that is one thing that we would address then down the road at plat stage. But there is already an approved connection for a road on that subdivision plat.
So then on either side of that road, leaves little pockets of land, not on the applicant's property, but on the property that already exists. So is that going to be landscaped into some kind of like green space or something, or what would happen?
Yeah, right now, if you were to put a public road through there, it would go from sidewalk to sidewalk that's already there. We can look at, if it goes private, we can certainly look at flaring that road out just to keep it, in line with the sidewalk that's already there on the existing development. So there's some design changes we can look at as far as that goes.
Okay. All right. And then on page 11, the very next page, it has elevation drawings of the units. Where are the entrances to these units? Like, for example, the one in the top, there's one, I think it's one entrance, but then it looks like it's 3 units. So where are the entrances to the other 2 units? And the same with the one below it. It looks like it's a 2-unit building. I see one entrance, but I don't know where the other entrance is. And I was just wondering, where are they?
Jason, if you want to jump in, I didn't put the floor plan on here. I can try and dig up the floor plan to show you. But Jason can address that if he can just unmute himself there.
Okay.
Yeah, so the side units will have the entry doors on the sides of the building themselves. So you're looking at the top typical triplex drawing. That center unit has the front door in the center of the building. The side units would have the entry door on the sides of the building. Again, this is all concept, but the idea was to just create a little privacy for the residents there, so.
Okay. Yeah, because if there's, yeah, because then if you look at it from the top view, sorry, then if you look at it from the top view, I don't see how side entrances could be there. You know, when you look at the top view with the road going through it, I don't really see how that would work. But I guess it's a concept plan. So, okay. So the comment, the resident's comment brought up open space. I actually had that as a comment as well. These units require, or this kind of zone requires a minimum 15% open space, as well as 100 points, a minimum 100 points worth of amenities. I was wondering what you were planning to do. I see that there's like a pavilion and such, and so do they, you know, is that going to be 100% worth of amenities and also 15% of open space?
At this stage, we don't look at the amenity points. We just look at square footage of landscaping. That's a detail we look at later. We're not in the weeds at that point. We want to make sure what they're overall proposing meets the minimum square footage, and then we'll address the amenity points. Because again, this is just conceptual as far as what they plan on putting there, and so we just look at the basic high level stuff.
Okay. And then as far as what the comments were about, I was concerned about you know, things like why there would be, so why are retaining walls being built by the surrounding properties and changing the natural flow of drainage when you know, in the engineer's report, we usually have conditions that say that you can't allow for changes in the natural drainage or having the drainage run into other adjacent properties. And so if those conditions are in place, how is it that other property developers have been able to do this to the residents' you know, property? And is there a way for us to prevent that from happening?
Mr. Scarborough, could you mute your thing so we don't have the feedback on your computer?
Gordon, do you want to tackle that as far as drainage goes?
Yeah, so there was a lot of feedback. Was the question, how are we going to prevent the phenomenon happening of what the resident complained about?
Yeah, because we have conditions that supposedly prevents that from happening in the, you know, if we have those conditions in place and yet it's happening anyway, does that mean that our conditions that are ineffective, or is there something else, another reason, or they were exempt, or I mean, what's, you know, why did this happen?
I don't know what the history is there. I was unaware of it. This is the first I'm hearing about any of that history, and those developments came through the approval process a long time ago. So I just can't speak to the history. As I can speak to the present, and I can tell you that's not going to happen. We have standards and specifications in place to prevent that from happening.
So these units are so it's 2-story units, so they don't have basements, is that right, for this development?
That's correct. Right now, the concept is showing 2 stories without a basement.
Okay, so are you also expecting to raise the land up you didn't see the video, but it looks like a lot of the property surrounding property to the to that resident, they had raised their property up on retaining walls, and I wasn't sure why that was necessary to do or what the reason was, because that's what apparently changed the flow of the drainage. And so I'm just wondering if that's also something that you were planning to do.
I can't speak to what's there. I have no idea the reasoning why they did what they did. In my mind, listening to the conversation, us not doing the basements may help. A lot of times that elevation is brought up when they have to dig a shallow basement, but it's also my understanding we can only change that grade so much. So we're planning on being able to retain our stormwater. We're planning on being able to deal with the runoff and do what we need to do to make that happen, all contained on our property.
And then last question I have is for Director Strauss. Do we have any plans for a city park or a large park like that, a larger park in that area, in that quadrant?
I'd have to pull up the general plan, but I'd have to venture it's probably pretty limited based on what's already up there now. Typically, city parks would be 5 acres or greater. Hard to put together 5 acres in this area right now for a city park. And so that's probably the best answer I could give you right now.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the commission? Anyone who would like to go next?
So I just have same questions for Gordon. So you say things are in place now for that not to happen, but like Kendall's asking, were those things not in place before? I mean, I know that we're not speaking in the past and that kind of stuff, but that obviously is happening, it looks like. So what's different now that you have in place that you're guaranteeing that it's not going to happen again? Like what do we have that's different from last time since it's been happening? What do you have in place now that's going to be different than what we had in place before to keep that drainage from happening?
Again, I don't know the history here at all. I don't know what standards they came. I don't know when this came through. All I know is the standards that we have today are not going to allow that. So I simply cannot speak to the history.
Right. Okay. Is that something that we could find out? I mean, I don't know if that's something that we need to determine, as the planning commission. But that's worrisome. It really is. And so I don't know if that's something that we can find out before we decide this. I mean, Director Stroud, I mean, what is that? I mean,
I don't know what there is. I mean, to find out about the history, I suppose that's something we can look into, but that doesn't have any bearing on the present. And I can tell you that the standards we have in place right now will not cause that problem. We'll address it.
Yeah. What you're looking at right now, we're talking about issues that are addressed at plat and site plan, which has to come back to you, right, where all those details. You mean really right now? It's great that we're aware of the issues, so we thank Mr. Crandall and Mrs. Crandall for that. Really, what your role is tonight is this an appropriate zone for this location? Because, like I said earlier, any development on this property is going to have to address that at site or plat stage. So it's not unique to the townhomes here, this new development.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just, thank you for clarifying what our role as a planning commission is for this, for what we're supposed to decide tonight. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Commissioner Barton. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners?
I just had a quick question for Director Stroud. Director Stroud, if you don't mind going back to it was page 8 in our packet, the larger map. with the area that we're talking about plus surrounding areas? I think it was part of your presentation. Yes. So we have some agriculture areas left here in green. Is that correct? My understanding of that?
Correct. These are the current zones.
Right.
So this would be the future land uses of those remaining ag properties. Basically, the one you see up here identified as medium density residential, and the two parcels you see adjacent to the applicant's parcel are also earmarked in the future for some sort of medium density residential.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify and get that as well out for everybody to help understand that. And I think that's important for us again with the questions, is making sure that this fits with where everything is headed and what we will be doing.
Yeah. I mean, to Mrs. Crandall's comment about single family, you know, from a planning perspective, this is not a single family location anymore. It's best used for the multifamily that the general plan has identified on it now.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and it's tough because we're in a city and we're experiencing explosive growth, and we do our best to try to plan for that and to keep that continuity of uses where they ought to be. So I'm sympathetic to both Mr. and Mrs. Crandall and their comments, and I think it's part of the growing pains that we're experiencing as a city. I'm appreciative that we have, at least in future plans, to keep somewhat of the same type of developments in the area, and I suspect those will probably be coming sooner rather than later as we visit that. And I had the same question around Commissioner Kilgore as to whether there's any plans for a park in the area. So I appreciate the answer to that as well, but that's all I had.
Thanks, Commissioner Ryan. So the way I'm understanding things this evening for this item, we need to determine, do we have enough information to make a decision on whether or not we should allow this zone change to go forward? Or do we need to get more information from the planning directors or other departments in order to continue it? That's kind of where I am at this point. My feelings are that because of the surrounding areas with the higher densities, that this use would probably be permitted. It would be nice if we could have commercial or something like that in here, but unfortunately, it's kind of far back from where our regional commercial zone is. And I don't think that there would be commercially viable for quarter-acre lots in this area. The other thing I'm interested to find out for their open space requirements, if they're going to do a fee in lieu of or something of that nature, but I'm guessing we're going to find that out at the plat stage. Is that correct?
Yeah, this type of development would not qualify for payment in lieu. They would have to put in the minimum open space and amenities.
Okay. All right.
Payment in lieu doesn't, you can't do that on this type. It has to be single family lots, large lots, 10,000 square foot, 70%, I want to say, have to be at least 10,000 square feet or something along that line. But definitely it's single family when you can start to consider payment in lieu.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I'll go ahead. If there's no other comments from the commission, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Commissioner Cunningham, sorry, that
Yes.
actually one on my notes, one that I forgot to ask about. So is the plan for this to be its own standalone HOA, this 13 units? I noticed the amenities are provided. There's like a pavilion and a barbecue area and a playground. So is the idea that this is a standalone HOA?
That's correct. Standalone HOA.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead and entertain a motion then if we don't have any more comments.
I move to recommend to the City Council approval of the request to rezone 1.58 acres at 1498 North Summer Village Road from the agriculture zone to the MF10 zone as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated March 4th, 2021.
And Commissioner Anderson seconds.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore and a second from Commissioner Anderson. I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, and I'll start with myself, and I'm going to go with aye, and then I'll go ahead and go to Commissioner Barton next.
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye. Thank you.
And Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. It looks like that's passed unanimous. So at this point, the planning commission makes a recommendation to the city council. This now moves on to the city council who actually makes the decision on this. And if that comes back as an approval from them, then we do the plat next. Is that correct?
Yeah, the plat and the site plan, and the plat
Okay.
will go on to preliminary will go on to the city council. We'll probably most likely run those together. A project this size, no need to split it up. It wouldn't be phased. So a project this size would then, be run together. Again, you are the authority for a site plan. So if we run both plats and the site plan together, your site plan then would typically be contingent upon the city council approving the preliminary plat, and then staff would approve the final.
I'll probably forget, but because I can't remember these things, but I hope one of us, somebody remembers, so that we really scrutinize, what comes back to us, so that we really can take into a consideration what the surrounding residents are experiencing. So I just hope I remember, or at least someone does.
So Commissioner Kilgore, this is Kevin Thurman speaking. I have met maybe 2 or 3 of you, but most of the planning commissioners are new, and I'm the city attorney. And it's good to be with you tonight. I was going to comment, but I thought David handled it really well. Gordon handled it really well also. But one thing I did want to mention is that we do have a plat note that's recorded on every plat that addresses drainage. And that plat note, Gordon actually brought that with him when he came to the city. So kudos to Gordon, but it's a really, really good plat note that addresses that. And it basically says that the property cannot drain to adjacent property other than what has historically flowed from that property to the adjacent property. And so that plat note covers us pretty well. And our inspectors have been trained now to look at that and verify that and make sure that the grading is appropriate so that doesn't happen. I'm not sure exactly what happened in the past. At this point, just considering the number of years that have passed, I think Summer Village is over 10 years old. That would probably be a civil matter where the property owners would have to figure it out between themselves, but that would not be lawful for one property owner to drain that much onto the adjacent property, so much that it's flooding people's basements. But at this point, there's not much the city can do. It's mostly a civil matter.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks. It's good to see you. Thanks for those
Good to
comments.
see you too. Kevin, thank you. That actually explains it really well on my side of it too. So I appreciate that.
Yes, and it's nice to see Kevin.
You're welcome.
I haven't seen him for quite a while.
It has been a long time. Good to see all of you.
Okay. I think the next item we have is the approval of the minutes. Just make sure that has everyone reviewed the minute, had an opportunity to review the minutes. And if you did need any changes, we've turned them into the city recorder to make those changes. All right, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for that.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion to approve the meeting minutes for the Planning Commission dated February 25th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Ryan and a second from Commissioner Barton. I'll go and start with Commissioner Wagstaff.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
And then Commissioner Cunningham, aye. So that's a unanimous and it passes. Next item, Commissioner comments.
I just have a quick one again, of course. Sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight. Hey, just wanted to, Director Stroud, thank you for explaining a little bit more about what our role is. Sometimes, I would love a little bit more training on that as well, right? Just to know exactly what our job is when it comes to land use. And I know it's the land use, but when it comes to extra things and stuff like that. So I appreciate you clarifying that for me, because a lot of times that helped me a lot to make sure that I knew what I was needing to do. So thank you for that.
While we're on the subject of training, Commissioner McConkey had sent me an email over the weekend, which I forwarded to the Director Stroud, about some additional training. And we had a bit of a discussion about training in particular. And Director Stroud, do you want to take over and mention some stuff?
You know, I talked to Laura Laura Gammon here in the city with HR, and I need to get together with her. We've kind of put things on the back burner when we were short on staff on some things, but there's some training put out by the Utah League of Cities and Towns that we're going to have you participate in. And right now it would be virtual online training where you would log in, watch the training modules. We can certainly follow up at a planning commission, any comments you have. There is a way that the city tracks it to make sure that you watch all of it and that you don't, speed it up 2 and 3 times to get it through the process. But because it's valuable training, I want you to pay attention to what it is. But now that we're kind of back to our Rachel Day, who was out for a while, is now back to the city, at least with part-time. And so she's picked up the projects that we were all kind of picking up ourselves that she normally would do. We also have a full-time planner one we'll be interviewing for here in a week or so as well. And so hopefully that'll alleviate some of the workload that's been on the rest of us to get going. But I would expect to have that training within the next month or 2.
Okay. In fact, David, if I can add to that, as of this legislative session, it's now a requirement for planning commissioners to have land use training. So if you recall, a few months ago, you had Marion provide the Open and Public Meetings Act training. Now every year it's required that planning commissioners receive land use training. So we'll go ahead and get that scheduled to make sure we're compliant with that.
Thanks for bringing that up, Kevin, because I had seen the bill that had come through, but I hadn't heard if it had passed or not. So that's good to know that it had passed. And we have had land use training in the past. I remember going off-site. I think there was a U of U extension over in Orem or Provo that we went to on a Saturday for some training.
Yep.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, we've been pretty good actually about getting you yearly training. We've even had the league come down before.
Yes.
Meg Ryan come down and give you training. So I think and there may be some stipulations in the new bill that Kevin will have to look at, but maybe there's something they specifically want you to have I don't know. But yeah, we have been actually giving you training on a yearly basis.
And we also had the state ombudsman come a couple times and talk to us about things, if I remember correctly, in-house when we were having meetings. And I remember Meg Ryan talking to us like 2 or 3 times, I think, over the time I've served. And I think she even talked in the meeting that we had before on the Saturday. All right. Any other comments from commissioners?
I do have a question, speaking of the bills. I think it was HB 98 that passed. I believe there was something in there that, if I remember right, I haven't had a chance to look at the final, I think it was a version 4 bill, about the facade, limiting the city's limitation, I guess. How does that, is that going to affect in the planning commission? Is that going to affect our ability to make decisions based on some particular facades?
Yeah, so that bill did pass, and it does restrict the city's ability to impose architectural requirements on residential buildings. It doesn't affect commercial buildings, but it does affect our ability to impose those on residences. There are some exceptions. One of those being if the architectural requirements were included as part of a development agreement, or if they're included as part of a planned unit development. And that's defined, so it would include basically our community plan, and pretty much a big chunk of the remaining development in the city would be exempt from that because of that exemption for planned unit developments. But the hope is to get that code change made before it comes back to the planning commission. And then the staff report will just basically mention which code requirements are being met, and it won't have to be something that you'll have to deal with other than making a recommendation on the code amendment.
And this is just for single family dwellings, townhomes, not for apartments. Again, I haven't read the final version of the bill.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. I believe you're right. I think for apartments, it doesn't apply, but it would apply to attached housing like townhomes. But we'll definitely keep you. Yeah, a lot of the bills haven't even been signed yet by the governor, so they're not even effective yet. But we'll definitely make sure that everyone is aware of what the state law changes were, and then we'll also make sure that we're compliant with our code and changing our code as needed.
Thank you.
Okay, what about the one about ADUs? Did that one pass? Kevin, do you know?
That one did pass. I don't have all the specifics because it was kind of a moving target during the process, but my understanding is that it did pass. But I haven't gone through those bills yet. I typically wait till they've been signed, and once they've been signed, the people that put together the bills and put the information out online, they specify the effective date of it. So I haven't looked at those yet, but I believe that one did pass. I could be wrong though.
Okay. Any other comments before we go to director's report? Okay, David, you're up for the director.
What I was going to bring up, we've already talked about. So with that said, I don't have anything new then.
All right.
Oh, well, let me take that back. Our community development director, Ken Young, will start next Wednesday. And so he will be on board at that point. And so we're excited to have him there.
Okay. Do we have a need to go into a closed session at this time?
We do not.
Okay. If not, we'll adjourn, and we're going to have another meeting in March, right? But the first one in April we're not having that because of spring break, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll stand adjourned until the next meeting in March.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.